Hi, and welcome back to yet another video. This is the 10th episode of the story about the time when Sasuke gives his sharingan eyes to Naruto on verge death in waves. Let's watch as Naruto Uzumaki, Uchiha takes world by storm. After you've finished watching, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. Pipe smoke drifted lazily through the air as the Sandaime Hokage exhaled a thick cloud from his nose. Turning his attention away from the dancing wisps of smoke the Hokage took in the team before him. Naruto stood at attention with a confident smirk on his face while Sakura and Temari stood on either side and Sai stood with a fake smile on Temari's right. Seeing the professor's eyes focus on his team, Naruto took a step forward. Team Naruto reporting for a mission, Hokage GG. Gazing proudly on the four bright flames in front of him, Sarutobi fingered through the C-rank mission scrolls on his desk before pulling one out of the stack and opening it before reading the details. Your team shall undertake a mission to protect one of the runners in the race to Todoroki Shrine. You will meet your client in the Garashi port on the coast of Chanokuni. The rest of the details are in the scroll. Dismissed, except for you, Naruto. The three Genin gave the Hokage a sharp salute before exiting the office, leaving Naruto alone with the venerable leader. After the door closed, the Sandaime took a moment to gather his thoughts. Naruto, I'd like for you to think about what I'm going to say very carefully before answering. During the Chunin exams, the Yondaime Reikage, who fought your father on several occasions, made the claim that you were the Yondaime Hokage's son. Before I could deny it, the daimyo, who was quite fond of your father, also made the connection after having it pointed out to him, so I had no choice but to verify the statement. I have managed to keep the information smothered for now, but the daimyo has been insisting that you meet with him, and with the information in Kumo's hands it is only a matter of time before they sell it, most likely to Iwagakure. To make matters worse, it's said in Kakashi's reports that you used a small amount of the Kyuubi's chakra, but enough to show that you were indeed a Jinchuriki, though apparently Killer B knew it before you even used the Kyuubi. We have several different routes we can pursue. One would be to just come clean about everything right now to the Shinobi of Konoha and let it slowly filter to the populace at large. I'll make the announcement in 2 days while you are on your mission. The Kazekage is already aware, and I suspect most of his Jounin know as well. So I shall make an announcement to Konoha's Jounin and slowly filter it out, and finally I will verify it to the other shinobi 5 days from now, when the Sunanin in Konoha have their bi-monthly assembly to address any issues with several high-ranking officials, so they won't be at the announcement, and from there it will filter into the civilian population, which will cause the most problems. I would just announce it to them at the same time, but I don't know what their reaction would be. They were calling for your blood when they found out what happened to the Kyuubi all those years ago. And if it wasn't for some of my most trusted Anbu, there would have been a riot. As you know, most of your staunchest detractors are civilians and would use the opportunity to rabble-rouse. The Yondaime was incredibly beloved by them because he didn't come from a shinobi clan, so I don't want to test those waters. The rumors will circulate after the announcement, but I don't think anyone will act on it immediately. I estimate 2 months at the earliest, so you will have time to get acclimated. You can also just reveal your heritage to the public but keep the younger generation clueless of the Kyuubi, or you can keep both hidden for as long as possible. And though it may be convenient now, the most convenient option isn't always the easiest in the long run. I would like to hear what you think we should do. Naruto scratched the whisker marks on his right cheek and stared at the picture of his father hanging next to one of a younger Sandaime. He then looked out the window towards the Yondaime's face on the mountain, the place he would always go as a child to seek comfort. You know, old man, I like the picture of my dad better than the mountain carving. When I become Hokage, they better not make me look like I have a stick up my ass. Sarutobi chuckled. Yes, I agree. All the Hokages could put on the serious face, though in reality a smile would have suited their personalities much better. Even mine looks too stern for my liking. Perhaps it is a tradition that you will change someday. Naruto smiled and took a deep breath before making his decision. I guess the best thing to do is just tell everybody. People are either going to like me or not like me when they find out, either way, and there's nothing that I can do about that. But I know that I can change their minds and become Hokage, so I think we should face it head on. After all, running from your problems just makes it worse. Naruto had the same fire in his eyes as his father had, and said that with the determination and will that his mother possessed. Any doubts the Sandaime had vanished. Well, Naruto, I agree, it is best to face it head on, so please inform Sakura and Sai of this on the mission discreetly so they know. Now I'll let you get on your way and prepare for the mission. I'd wish you good luck, but I'm sure you won't need it. Naruto gave the Sandaime a cheeky salute and jumped out the window while the old man looked at his back with pride as he leapt across the rooftops. You're already influencing him a great deal, Jiraiya. I hope for your sake he doesn't start picking up your more lecherous habits, or I fear Tsunade may finish the job she left undone when you were caught peeping on her. Speaking of Tsunade. Turning back to his desk, the Hokage pressed the button on the intercom. "Can you please send in the next appointment, dear?" Soon enough the door opened and Tsunade strolled in, followed by Tuya and Shizune, who held Tonton in her arms. "Please take a seat." Taking one of the offered seats, Tsunade relaxed into the cushion before addressing her sensei. "Well, what's the deal, old man? I've been sitting around for over a week and I'm starting to get bored. I thought you recalled me to do more than sit on my ass." The old man chuckled as Shizune scolded her master and raised his hand to stop the brunette, and his face lost all its cheer. Tragically, the current head of the hospital committed seppuku after learning his adopted son was a spy for Orochimaru, and now the position needs to be filled. "I figured that if you were going to improve the medical program, the hospital would be the best place to start." Tsunade crossed her arms under her tremendous bust while looking at the pictures of her grandfather and great-uncle. "My intention was to grow the medical program, and having to divert my attention to run a hospital would severely hamper that. Yes, I too wish for the program to grow, but it's an exercise in futility to expand something if the base isn't solid. Unfortunately, the high expectations of your time have waned, and with the interest in the program dropping, it becomes harder and harder to field skilled Ryonin. I had hoped that after you return the hospital to its previous standards, you could begin the classes with several doctors that you handpicked to assist you. When word gets around that the legendary healer of the Sannin is teaching classes, interest in applicants will skyrocket." Tsunade gave the Hokage a nostalgic smile. "What's with you and metaphors, sensei? If you really think it's that bad, then I'll take over. But once it gets settled, I want Shizune to take my place. I wish to return to the field eventually." Hiruzen leaned back in his chair and gathered his thoughts for a moment. "According to Jiraiya, you have much training to undertake before you are at your previous level. I'll tell you what. If you can expand the medical program by 50% in 2 years while returning their standards to previous levels and regain or surpass your previous strength, I'll allow you to return to active duty with whatever ridiculous stipulation you no doubt want." Tsunade nodded. "Then you've found the new hospital head." Turning his attention away from his student, the Sun Daime focused on the younger Kunoichi. "While Tsunade turns her attention to the hospital, I have a task for you as well, Shizune. You can teach classes and help your master at the hospital, but I want your main focus to be Tuya's training and integration into Konoha for the next 6 months. If she receives your stamp of approval, then we will grant her the rank of Jinan and find a team to place her with. It should be close to the end of the next Chunin exam, so there should be several openings in Jinan teams, especially if the last exam was any indication." Shizune gave the man a determined nod. "Of course, Hokage-sama, I shall do my best." The elder gave Shizune a gentle smile. "Then that shall be more than enough. Now if you don't have any more issues, please enjoy the rest of this beautiful day. Report to the hospital at 9 tomorrow, Tsunade, and I shall make the announcement to the staff." Sarutobi watched the backs of the 3 women, hoping his efforts to solidify and prepare the village would be effective. 4 forms blurred through the canopy, giving no sign they were there and leaving none except for the brief shifting of the leaves when they leapt from branch to branch. After leaving the Hokage's office, Naruto went home to pack, making sure to strap his saber vertically down his back with the handle sticking out above his right shoulder for easy access and no loss of mobility. He then met his team at the gates, and after receiving some teasing from Sakura and Temari on their new team name, he read them the scroll he received at the briefing. Now leaping from branch to branch, Naruto traced his finger around the handle, thinking about his crash course training with his new blade. Kakashi was due to depart for a mission the day after Naruto approached him for help, so couldn't offer much help, but the copy nin allowed his student to use the sharingan to copy some of the more basic movements that were needed to wield the weapon with any proficiency, and the blade would impart visions of some of the simpler moves used by its previous wielders as well as some of its lesser powers. The boy bought a practice weapon and had his clones spar using the normal blades. He also practiced the movements he was shown by Kakashi and the saber. Naruto had even tried approaching Sai for help on handling the small tool, but the pale boy somehow shifted the conversation to penises, so Naruto didn't ask for any more help. Pushing distractions to the side, the young Chunin turned his attention to the mission, and so far everything was going smoothly if he said so himself. Temari and Sakura would constantly argue or try to one-up another during training, but now they both stayed professional and focused on the task at hand. Nobody spoke since they left the gate, opting to save their breath until Temari broke the silence. "Naruto Teiko, I know a good dumpling place near here that would be a good place to break for lunch with your permission, sir." The Chunin ignored the sandy blonde's teasing voice and stopped to consider it. On one hand, they were making good time, so a break couldn't hurt, but on the other, he was anxious to get his first mission as a Chunin commander underway as quickly as possible. Deciding that a good squad leader would want his subordinates to be rested and well-fed, he nodded towards the Sunakunoichi. "Alright, lead the way, Temari. We'll continue to Degarashi Port after we refuel." Naruto watched as the older girl leapt to the head of the pack with his eyes lingering on her backside as the team veered slightly off course. It didn't take more than 5 minutes for the foursome to reach their destination, and they hopped down from their tree branches before entering the homely building. Grabbing one of the many open tables, the four looked around to see. The restaurant was deserted except a boy, probably around Tamari's age, with brown hair that resembled a mullet, except the party in back was pulled into a ponytail. He was wearing Onbu-style shin guards with blue shorts that stopped above his knee with bandages wrapped around both of his thighs. He wiped some crumbs off his blue vest and plain white undershirt while giving the four shinobi a dirty look. The stranger quickly devoured the remainder of his meal and approached their table, giving Naruto the evil eye. "What are shinobi doing out here in this peaceful area? Did you come to massacre some innocent civilians for some money?" He turned away from the Chunin, cutting off his angry response to face the two girls at the table. "Obviously I don't include lovely ladies such as yourselves in that sentence. Why don't you quit being killers for hire and come with me? I promise you'll enjoy yourselves." Naruto was about to give the punk a piece of his mind, and maybe leave a sandal mark on his ass to remember him by, but the blonde saw signs of Sakura's anger surfacing, so sat and watched, waiting for the fireworks. Her warm green eyes froze over as she gripped the table with her hands, cracking the sturdy wood. The boy backed off in fear as she turned her frosty gaze on him. "You have some nerve. Coming over to our table to insult my friends and profession, then trying to hit on us like a sleazeball. You have 10 seconds to get out of my sight, or I'll make it so no girl will ever look at your face without recoiling in horror, and that will just be the visible damage. I don't think you want to know what I'll do to your little friend." The teenager wisely heeded the warning, but Sai got the last word in. "Don't take his words to heart. I've read people that are overly hostile towards others are usually compensating for something, and most of the time it is an incredibly small penis." The shinobi laughed at the retreating form of the fuming jerk and enjoyed the meals that the woman placed in front of them, but Tamari saw something off. "Hey Obachan, why are there 2 receipts here?" She stopped her shuffling towards the kitchen to answer the question. "Well, that nice young boy said that his 4 friends inside would be paying for him." Tamari grabbed her fan and rose to give chase when Naruto held her down with a hand on her shoulder. "Don't worry about it, Tamari-chan, I've got it covered." Biting his thumb, Naruto ran through 4 seals before slamming his bloody hand on the ground. Kushios no Jutsu. Seals spread along the ground before vanishing in a puff of smoke, revealing a small frog with a strange device on his head. "Hey Gamasuke, this guy that was sitting over at that table and shoved his bill off on us and ran. I was hoping that you could track him and lead my shadow clones to him so I can get repaid along with some interest." "No problem." The toad began to scan the area while turning his knobs. "That's quite strange. Normally a civilian leaves a tiny amount of residual chakra in the area, which is hard to isolate, but this one leaves behind a trail I would expect an average Shinin to." Naruto looked out the door. "That's weird because he seemed to have a problem with ninja. Maybe he was trained as a samurai but was replaced with shinobi or something. Regardless, I have a bone to pick with that guy, so if you manage to lead my clone to him, I'll summon you back tomorrow and let you loose by the ocean. I'm sure you could find some interesting bugs there." The Chunin summoned a cage bunshine and the frog jumped on its shoulder. "No problem, Naruto. I'll be seeing you tomorrow." Confident the problem was taken care of, the squad finished their meals and paid the 2 bills before taking off towards Chanokuni once more. After making sure they were on track, Naruto addressed his team. "It appears that kid is traveling in the same direction as we are. Hopefully he was caught and my clone is keeping him restrained for us. I want to send him Goroshi his ass after I get my money back." After a couple of hours they ran into the cage bunshine hunched over with Gamasuke perched on his shoulder while the bunshine was breathing heavily at the ledge of a cliff. "I couldn't catch up to him, boss. I was right on his heels, but he suddenly put on a burst of speed and my chakra started to drop because I had to use it to keep up. I hardly have any left, and to make things weirder, his chakra trail practically vanished and we couldn't distinguish it from naturally occurring chakra, which according to Seiki means he's suppressing his chakra, which samurai aren't usually trained to do. There is more to that kid than meets the eye." Naruto nodded and dismissed his clone and began sorting through the memories before his eyes widened. "Wow, that is fast. There's definitely something strange about that guy. After we meet with our client, I'll send Gigi a messenger bird telling him to keep an eye out in the area for that kid. He might be a missing nin or spy." Tamari shook her head. "I doubt he was either. If he was, then it would have served no purpose to attract our attention and ire like that." Sakura nodded. "She's right, though we should still alert the Hokage and give him a description because him escaping from a trained shinobi isn't normal, even if it's just a clone." Naruto looked down from his vantage point at the forest. "Well, there's nothing we can do about it now, so let's just keep going. I'll still summon you tomorrow, Seiki." The toad dismissed himself before Naruto faced his team. "Alright, No point in waiting around here, let's get a move on to Degarashi Port double time. Team Naruto stood on a bluff overlooking the port town. There were massive docks where large ships were docked while getting cargo loaded or unloaded. From there it turned into a fresh seafood market, which gradually shifted into a more standard marketplace. From there the town expanded outwards in all directions with residential districts on the fringes, though the wealthier ones were the farthest from the docks. Two houses on the north and south sides dominated the view of the port town. Most of the houses were small two-story buildings and were all similar shades of brown, but these two mansions had large stone walls forming their perimeter with what appeared to be guard towers at set intervals. On the inside were well-kept yards with what appeared to be a maze of bushes that were almost as tall as the stone wall, and were so thick that they appeared impenetrable. The house on the north side was a massive four-story mansion with marble pillars framing an enormous front entrance with an ornate door that was at least 15 feet high inlaid with gold carvings. The house itself was painted pearl white and had 7 large wings that were as long as 4 average houses from the town. The one on the south side was only 3 stories but was much larger than the other manor when viewed from above. It was at least twice as long as the other mansion with 12 wings spread throughout the yard. This one appeared more modest though. It lacked the imposing front entrance and gaudy doors, and it was painted a tan color with brown shutters on all the windows matching the theme of the other houses in town. Not wasting any more time, the 4 shinobi jumped down the cliff face, then started traversing it until they got to the path that wound between the cliffs that lead to the front entrance. They walked into town and shortly after an older man with gray hair called out to them. He was well dressed, wearing a light blue kimono with 2 symbols on the shoulder and a thin tassel holding it together over a green hakama. "Greetings Konohanin, my name is Wasabi Jirocho and I am your client." The man reached out his hand and Naruto clasped it, recognizing him from the picture in the scroll. "Hello Jirocho-san, I am Chunin Uzumaki Naruto and leader of this team," though the blonde kunoichi is actually from Suna and named Tamari. The pink-haired kunoichi is Sakura, and the boy is Sai. "I understand we are supposed to guard a runner during a race." The man motioned for them to follow, and as he led them through town he explained the details. Every 4 years there is an event called the Todoroki Shrine Race. It is a competition between my family and our rivals across town, the Wagarashi family, to see who controls Degarashi Port for the 4 years in between each race. The daimyo started it to serve as a substitute for the growing bloodshed that was regrettably beginning to take its toll on innocent people. We both agreed with him, and though my family won the first 3 races, we haven't been able to win one since, and it's because our runners keep getting stopped by strange events, like rock slides blocking paths, leaky boats, and one man was found knocked out and couldn't remember the past 4 days at all. I began to suspect that the Wagarashi were hiring shinobi to sabotage our runners, so I want you 4 to protect him. If it turns out shinobi are interfering, I would like you to stop them, and please make sure that nothing happens to our runner a date even if there is no interference from ninja. The group arrived at the mansion on the south side of town shortly after the explanation, and their host skillfully led them through the maze of plants and they made sure to memorize the route. After arriving at the door he faced them. "I shall have a servant show you to your lodgings, though you are free to come and go as you please. A guard shall escort you through the maze to make sure you don't get lost. Our runner is currently in his room. I shall have someone show you where that is so you can post a guard if you think it necessary." Jirocho opened the door and left the group as an attractive brunette, who appeared to be in her young 20s, wearing a plain white kimono with a red obi, approached them and bowed, "Please let me show you to your rooms for the night." She led them through the hallways and they took note that the floors chirped like birds as they walked down it. There was a layer of paper covering the wooden walls with a large gap in between them, making it impossible to walk on using chakra. The woman pointed out the runner's room as they walked and eventually stopped before pointing to 4 doors in the area. "These are your rooms and are all the same, so choose amongst yourselves." Before leaving she faced Naruto and Sai and bowed once more. "If the young masters wish it, we can send some company to their rooms for the night if they get lonely and would like some entertainment." Sakura looked like she wanted to rip the servant's eyes out and Tamari was about to sodomize the girl with her fan, but it was only the confused face of Naruto that stopped them. I don't think I'll be lonely. Besides, I don't really like board games, so I'll just watch television." The servant could only give the shinobi a wide-eyed stare and walked away, unable to form a sentence. After the 4 claimed their rooms and dropped off their gear, they met in Naruto's. Each of the rooms was like an apartment containing a living room furnished with a 3-person couch and several chairs behind a glass table facing a wall-mounted television. The room was connected to a small kitchen and there was a small hallway that led to a room with a king-size bed and a full bathroom complete with a sit-down shower. Currently Naruto sat in the middle of the couch, sandwiched by the 2 kunoichi who were glaring at each other over his spiky blonde hair, while Sai sat on a chair sketching in his notepad. Naruto found that the fridge was stocked with different drinks and snacks and was currently devouring a plate of cinnamon rolls. After licking his fingers and lips clean, Naruto outlined the strategy for his team. "Alright, I'm going to send my clones off to run the race, so I'll have to focus my attention on maintaining them that far away. After they dispel, we can make our strategy for guarding the runner, but for now I want to gather some information." Sakura and Temari will go into town dressed as civilians and try to get some information on this Wagarashi family. While you two do that, I want Sai to stand guard outside the runner's room in case he decides to go out for a stroll, and send out some ink animals to infiltrate the Wagarashi house. I'll send one of the girls to relieve you when they get back, and we'll stop our watch at midnight because I'm sure he'll be asleep. I'll get up at 6 tomorrow to resume the watch, and I want you guys to meet at the starting before people start showing up to the race and survey the crowd. The three set out to complete his orders while Naruto summoned several shadow clones and let them slink off into the night while he relaxed. After sensing that the girls left and went their separate ways, Naruto sent 2 clones out to make contact with Sai and Sakura. One leapt out the window to head towards the town while the other located Sai. He found the boy lying down on the roof above the runner's room and sat next to him. They sat in silence for some time while Sai continued to draw, and when the pale boy rolled up the scroll, Naruto decided he could wait no longer. "Listen, Sai, I have some things I need to tell you, and you can tell Temari or anyone else from Suna. I never knew who my parents were, and it turns out it was for my safety. You see, my dad was the Yondaime Hokage and he sealed the Kyuubi into me. Apparently the Raikage uncovered this at the finals of the exam, and his brother knew I was a Jinchuriki because he's one too. The Hokage is making an announcement while we're on this mission, and I just wanted you to hear it from me because you're a friend and teammate." Sai's eyes widened when Naruto revealed who his father was, and he already knew of him being a Jinchuriki. The root agent felt a strange pull in his stomach and wished Naruto's father didn't die sealing the Kyuubi into him for some reason. Pushing the feelings aside, Sai gave Naruto a blank look. "I don't know what to say. I'm glad that you told me yourself, but I don't see how this makes you any different than you already are." Sai was once again confused when Naruto gave him a wide smile. "You know what, Sai, every once in a while you somehow say something that's really cool. I am still confused." The guards patrolling the grounds wondered what was going on when they heard someone roaring in laughter. Sakura walked back towards the Wasabi household, chewing on her bottom lip. She managed to learn that the Wagarashi family were the main importers of various drugs cultivated on the many small islands that were impossible for the weakened Karigakure and Mizunokuni to patrol, and they supplied most of the big-time drug lords across the elemental nations, and the Kunoichi was willing to bet Gato was helping them before his death. She found a dock worker wearing the symbol of the Wagarashi taking a break and managed to spirit him away for interrogation. After subjecting him to some of the nastier interrogation genjutsu she learned from Ino's mom, the girl was able to find out that the ships also imported weapons, slaves which were mostly women, and imported and exported anything illegal they could make money on. Shortly after he spilled his guts, she put him to sleep with a medical technique and dropped his body into the water face down. All that was secondary though to what the clone told her when it called her into a decrepit warehouse. Flashback: Sakura followed the clone into the decaying building, wondering what was so important. Maybe he wants to confess his love for us. Knowing that Naruto wouldn't do something like that on a mission, she pushed her inner self aside and looked at the clone's face. He appeared nervous about something. He kept fidgeting and looking anywhere but her, not to mention he opened his mouth several times but promptly closed it without saying anything each time. "Naruto, you can tell me anything, you know that, right?" The blonde took a deep breath after that before facing her, though Sakura could still see the trepidation in his eyes. "The Sun Daime asked me to inform you and Sai of something during the mission because he'll be announcing it while we're in the field, but you can't tell Temari. The story about the Kyuubi we were told as children is a lie. The Ondaime defeated the Nine Tails, but you can't kill a Baiju, they're just masses of chakra held together by a strong will." Knowing that he couldn't beat the beast by normal means, the Yondaime took his newborn son and sealed the Kyuubi into him to stop the beast's rampage. The populace learned of it and called for the child's blood, ignorant of his heritage, and the Sandaime was forced to make a law saying you cannot speak the truth of the Kyuubi attack or tell anyone. If someone broke it, they would be executed after it was proven. Sakura stared at Naruto, wondering why he was beating around the bush, but she got a bad feeling about the whole thing. "Well, who is the baby? Wait, it's you, isn't it? That's why all the adults treat you weird." Naruto's head dropped, hiding his eyes from her, and even though she knew it was just a clone, Sakura squeezed it so hard it almost popped. "I'm so sorry, Naruto. It must have been so hard for you, I'm so sorry." The Bunshine wrapped its arms around Sakura and squeezed her back, whispering comforts. "Sakura, it's okay. I know you have a lot of questions, but we'll talk when we get back to Konoha." The pink cat nodded into the clone's chest and wiped the stray tears from her eyes on its shirt. The clone squeezed her one more time before letting go and stepping back. "I'll see you when you get back, Sakura-chan." Flashback, and Sakura ran along the outside of the stone wall before leaping over it while the sentries were looking elsewhere. She then jumped over the hedgerows until she reached the wing of the house they were in and walked up the wall until she reached the window and opened it before slipping in. Shutting it behind her, the Sharingan exited Naruto's bedroom to see the blonde in a meditative position. She crept out of the room, careful not to disturb Naruto, and breathed a sigh of relief before slinking off to her room to change out of the civilian clothes. Sakura returned to the blonde's apartment and she silently thanked God that Temari was in the room. Giving the older Kunoichi a begrudging nod, Sakura went to the fridge to get some juice and waited for their team leader to wake up. They didn't sit long as Naruto's cerulean blue eyes shot open shortly after Sakura arrived, and he immediately opened a map and started furiously scribbling as he bent over the table. The two girls tried to make sense of it, but he was drawing so fast it was impossible to get a good look. Naruto put his pen down and laid the map on the table before unfolding a blank one and placing it next to his marked one. "Temari-chan, I want you to go to your room and rest up after this, because tomorrow morning you and Sai will be leaving early and heading to the boats to inspect ours and keep it safe from any sabotage. There's a map with the route marked in your room. Sakura and I will trail at 8 and meet up with you guys at the boats. We'll all travel together from that point on until the end of the race, but that's the best case scenario. We need to have someone with it 8 at all times, so if we have to fight we'll be forced to separate because we can't slow him down, and if Shinobi are behind it then we'll probably have to fight." Naruto pointed to 4 places that were heavily marked. These 4 areas plus the boat ride are the most obvious places for ambush, but thankfully only one of them is before we meet up at the boats. The woods are abnormally thick in areas and the river is incredibly deep and fast moving, and it makes crossing this river impossible except for one area where it turns into a fjord. It's an excellent choke point and the perfect place for someone with a water nature. Fortunately I have some Suden jutsu of my own. After the boat ride we'll form a box around the runner and leap through the trees for maximum protection, that way. The blonde slid his finger across the map before pausing at a line that stretched across the page. "Almost 20 miles down the trail is a ravine, so when we get within 5 miles of the entrance, Sai and Sakura will move ahead and check the area for enemy Shinobi. This area is a ravine that is unstable on top of the cliff, so we'll have to go through. You two should have no problems moving on both sides of the cliff and making sure nobody plans to cave it in on us. After that we come to the densest area of the forest and it's impossible to get through unless you run through the designated path, but I think it looks more like a tunnel through trees. I'll send some clones ahead to flush out any traps because even Shinobi would be hard pressed to strike quickly after entangling themselves in the trees, so if the Wagarashi runner gets a lead I can guarantee that the path will be heavily trapped. Finally after that is a bridge. I'll go forward with Temari and we'll check out the area and keep the bridge from getting cut down. After that it should be a dead sprint to the finish, so we'll stay near the runner and make sure nobody can get the jump on him. Sakura, go relieve Sai and tell him to come to my room. You get to bed, Temari. The race starts at 8 and I want you guys at the boats by 4. The two girls left to carry out his orders while Naruto stared at the maps and reviewed his plan over and over again, looking for any flaws that could get his precious people killed. A beggar slunk through the north side of town, rummaging through the alleys until he neared the city limits. Seeing nobody was looking down the alley, he was scrounging and the beggar slipped into a hidden tunnel to get into the Wagarashi household that was only known to several top members of the family. The tunnel was primarily used for sending out agents without anyone knowing, though its original purpose was for a secure way out of the house if it needed to be evacuated. Once he emerged behind a thick bush near the greenhouse, the man strode confidently across the grounds and through the maze, looking like he owned the place despite the looks he was receiving from the residents and staff. But nobody would dare question someone who walked like they owned the place, no matter how strange the person, though the guards were notified he was coming. The man rounded a corner and saw 2 burly men standing in front of carved oak doors. Reaching into his tattered brown cloak, the man pulled out a fine jade figurine. It was a large tree with an intricate root system, and it looked like the small statue could buy him enough food for a month. The vagabond didn't break his stride while put the carving back into his cloak, and the 2 burly men stepped aside and opened the doors to grant him access to the founder of the Wagarashi family and its leader, Boss Kuroko. The filthy man looked out of place in the room filled with fineries like crystal decanters, no doubt filled with whiskey older than he was, or the fine pieces of art that adorned the walls. Even his filthy feet, sand shoes, looked strange standing on top of the ornate Persian rug, leaving trails of dirt on the pristine carpet. Despite this, the head of the Wagarashi family appeared to defer to the man as he gave him a respectful nod. "I've done as you asked and hired Rokuso Aoi from Amigakure for an extra fee to sabotage the wasabi tomorrow. The vagrant stared at the finely dressed man with cold eyes. "Do not make it seem like you are going out of your way, Kuroko. You know very well the reward promised will more than make up for any expense that you can incur. My master is generous and merciless, do not anger him, and since I am representing him, do not anger me." Boss Kuroko placed his palms together and held his hands over his bowed head. "Yes, I am sorry. Please forgive me for my stupidity." Seeing the man gave no outward reaction to his plea, Kuroko continued, thinking he was off the hook. "Yes, well, it seems Jirocho has hired a team from Konoha to protect the runner, but it seems they are all children, except one has a vest that the higher-ranked ninja usually wear. Do not underestimate the Leaf. It is a major power and therefore it can set a higher standard for promotion than a smaller village like Ame that needs the numbers. However, you don't have to worry because their presence has already been accounted for. You shall receive your reward regardless of the outcome." Kuroko sighed in relief when the man turned and exited the room with door closing loudly behind the stony-faced man, and Kuroko poured himself a tall glass of liquor before draining it in a gulp and pouring another. "I think I need to retire and take a trip somewhere nice after this job." The beggar slipped into the same abandoned warehouse that Naruto told Sakura about his heritage and burden in and placed the jade carving on top of a collapsed wall. He then sat in a metal chair before tying his feet to its legs. He then slumped forward before looking up and at his surroundings in a panic. Before he could scream, an arm burst forward from the shadow behind him and a kunai slit his throat and cut his vocal cords, leaving him unable to make noise as he thrashed about in death throes with blood spilling down the front of his body despite him blocking the gash with his hands. Suddenly a figure in a black cloak with a hood up and an animal mask with green markings stepped out from the shadow with a bloody kunai extended. He wiped the blood off the kunai on the dead man's soiled rags before placing it in his pack and grabbed the jade statue, placing it in his cloak. Making sure the item was secure, the figure sat in a meditative position and called out to his master, "Danzo-sama, I have done as you ordered and the Wagarashi have hired Aoi." He sat patiently feeling for his master's thoughts before latching onto the thread he was looking for. "Here's your next task, Fu. Go to the daimyo's city and Cha and place the documents I gave you in the drop point for our spy in his court. Once wind of it gets to the daimyo, he'll have the Wagarashi executed. I can think of no better reward than release from this cursed world for Kuroko and his wretched ilk. Once the family is arrested, I want you to take Team Epsilon and discreetly secure his illegal operations so we can increase Root's funding for the coming storm." "It shall be done, master." Sai was getting ready to go to bed when he remembered his orders from Danzo. Usually such things would be at the front of his mind, but the pale boy was trying to decipher the strange feelings he was getting as of late. Once again pushing the strange fluttering in his stomach to the back of his mind, Sai undid the seal and began reading. As he got further down the scroll, his hands gripped tighter and eventually the scroll ripped in two and Sai stared at the pieces in confusion. "Why do I want to tear this scroll to shreds? It will simply disintegrate in 2 more minutes." The pale boy frowned as he sat in the bed, all thoughts of sleep forgotten. He sat unmoving for 2 hours before he finally blew out the candle by his bedside. There was no way he was going to intentionally sabotage his team so he could retrieve the Raijin blade for Root. Sai lay in bed and looked up at the ceiling. "I don't think I could live with myself if I put Naruto and Sakura in danger like that. I'll find a better way to accomplish the mission and strengthen Konoha." The Sundaime Hokage used his wrinkled hands to massage his temples and tried to absorb the details from the mission debriefing. The wizened man closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and exhaled before opening his wise brown eyes to take in the team before him. It seemed young Naruto was a magnet for trouble. C-rank missions routinely turned into encounters with high-level shinobi. The blonde Chunin was truly embarrassed about what happened, but there was no reasonable explanation. Even his teammates didn't understand what happened, it just didn't make sense. "Naruto, there had to be something you left out. There's a missing piece of the puzzle somewhere." None of the shinobi would make eye contact with the Hokage and Naruto furrowed his brow as he tried to recall any missing details. "I don't think I left anything out, Hokage-sama." The wizened Kage smiled as he watched the young blonde continue maturing from a young prankster into a fine man. "Then we aren't making the connections that are there. Perhaps you should repeat the story once more." "Well, it started like this." Flashback: Naruto and Sakura arrived with Jirocho to meet the 2 runners who had a private breakfast with the daimyo and his closest advisors before the race. The head of the Wasabi family was wearing a light blue hakama with the kanji for wasabi on the back made of fine silk over a canary yellow kimono made of the same material. The 2 shinobi waited an appropriate distance away while the 2 rival family leaders exchanged a stiff handshake. The head of the Wagarashi family was a reedy-looking man with shifty eyes and a cocky smirk under a black mustache. Like Jirocho, his clothing was made using only the finest silk. He wore a lime green hakama over a black kimono. After the tense handshake, the members of the two families let go of their hidden weapons and their leaders turned and bowed before the daimyo as he emerged with the two runners behind him. Someone made an announcement proclaiming the runner's name, but as soon as Naruto saw the wasabi runner, his eyes narrowed and Sakura pulled on the back of his coat and gave him a look reminding him they were supposed to protect the boy and not do anything to hurt him or his chances of winning. After a short introduction to the audience, the two runners accompanied their sponsors back to their respective families, and Itate's face paled when he recognized the two shinobi. Naruto slid through the crowd surrounding the two and confronted the teen who left his bill with them. "So I was lucky enough to see you again." The boy took a step back and waved his hands in front of his body. "I don't know what you're talking about, I've never seen you before in my life." Naruto growled and took a step forward. "That's bullshit, if it wasn't my job I'd side with the other runner. You shoved your bill off on us and I want my money back, with interest." Any reply Itate had was cut off by Jirocho's heavy hand resting on his shoulder and the disapproving frown directed at him. "Itate. After this race you will do exactly what this young man requested, whether you win or lose. I also expect you to apologize for your actions and thank these fine shinobi for protecting you despite them." The runner gave a defeated sigh and bowed to Naruto and Sakura. "I'm sorry for my actions, and I would like to thank you for continuing to protect me even though I don't deserve it." The apology took the wind out of Naruto's sails and he lost some of his bluster. "Whatever, just don't do it again." Jirocho clapped the two boys on the shoulder and gave the three teens a cheerful smile. "Well, the race is about to start, so get to the starting line at 8, and I expect you two to make sure he gets back safely." Naruto and Sakura gave him a firm nod and watched as the official launched a flare into the sky signaling the start of the race. Naruto paused and tried to examine the race with more detail before continuing his report. "Sakura and I shadowed at 8. I made some cage bunshines and had most form a perimeter and sent the remainder forward to act as scouts. Everything was going smoothly until we got the fjord where the runners were supposed to cross." Flashback continues. Itate was running next to the trying to find where the river became narrower and shallower so he could cross. Even a jounin would have difficulty water walking across the rapidly flowing waters. The runner went around a bend and smiled as he saw the fjord, but 7 figures burst out of the water holding kunai knives that glinted in the sunlight. Itate let out a scream and dropped to the ground as 7 green and black blurs intercepted the ambushers, but they only passed through. Itate saw the kunai they launched and was confident it was just an illusion, until one hit him and scratched his cheek. The Naruto clones surrounded him and drew kunai of their own and attempted to deflect every projectile coming their way, although most went through their knives. More and more bodies slowly rose from the surface of the river and it became apparent they were clones of 3 different people with headbands bearing the symbol of Amigakure, 4 vertical lines in a row. One wore a bandana-style headband covering his head, but the other 2 had brown hair. One stood up much like Konohamaru's and the others was short and spiked straight up. They all had white bandanas around their eyes. The one with the bandana had a hole revealing his right eye, the Jonin with the short hair had both eyes covered, and the other had 2 eyes visible. All of them wore rebreathers and had matching pale yellow jumpsuits that looked like straitjackets. The clones wasted no time and rushed at Itate only for the trees surrounding him to become engulfed in smoke as a horde of Naruto clones rushed out to meet the charge and one turned his head to the runner. "Keep going, we'll cover you." The brunette heeded the clone's advice and burst into motion once more, only for Sakura and the real Naruto to drop from the canopy and run beside him. When they got to the shallow stretch, more clones rose from the water, but instead of summoning more clones, the blonde smirked and made 3 quick seals and left his hands in the sign of the bird, Uzumaki Haijutsu. Mizuno Tatsumaki. Tornado of water. Sakura stared in awe as a massive cyclone of water formed and engulfed the entire fjord and cleared the way for the 3 to run across unhindered. As they got across, more clones burst from the water, but Sakura turned and launched 5 shuriken before forming a quick series of seals. Shuriken Cage Bunshine no Jutsu. The 5 shuriken multiplied into 25 and went through the clones but deflected the barrage of shuriken that their approach hid. Naruto gave her a surprised look and she just gave him a smirk. "It was in the scrolls Kaka-sensei gave me. You didn't think I was going to let you have all the fun?" The Chunin responded with a foxy grin and formed a cross with his fingers, spawning more shadow clones to cover their retreat as the 3 put on a burst of speed. The Sandaime tapped his pipe on the ashtray, interrupting the report. "You said earlier that you could feel them following you, but they veered off. Do you have any idea why?" Naruto nodded. "I have a theory." Seeing the Hokage nod, Naruto continued, "We were running up the beach to meet Temari and Sai at the boat. We saw their runner coming from the dunes. They probably took the same shortcut as the runner to beat us to the boats." Flashback continues. Temari and Sai stood protectively in front of the wasabi boat as the Wagarashi runner hopped into his. They sensed someone entering the boat from the water, but they let it happen because a fight could have damaged the boats. They didn't have to wait much longer for the rest of their team, and it hopped right into the boat as Sakura, Sai, and Naruto started pushing. Temari just laughed at their effort, hop into the boat and open the sail. They followed her instructions and she opened her fan to one moon and sent forth several gusts of wind, pushing the wooden hull off the sandy shores before gliding into the boat on her fan. She touched down gracefully on the deck and folded her fan before facing her 3 squad members. "Am I glad to see you guys?" Waiting with pale face over there was like talking to a tree. A tree that makes dumbass comments. Sai just rubbed the bruise under his jaw and gave the sandy blonde a plastic smile. "What? I was just complimenting you by saying your breasts are large in men like that, unlike flat-chested women such as Sakura." The rude agent was slammed to the deck courtesy of a fist and iron fan. While Sai regained his bearings, Temari would occasionally feed the sails, allowing the boat to gain on the other runners. When they were within 50 meters, the clones started rising from the water and Naruto groaned, "Not again. Don't these guys have any other tricks?" Temari raised her eyebrow at the clone army. It wasn't nearly as many as Naruto could summon, but still impressive. "Is there anything special about those clones?" Sakura shook her head. "They're illusionary like the Bunshin no Jutsu, but the real ones are hidden among them and launch attacks from different angles and mix them with the illusions, making it hard to discern the real attack." Temari tore her gaze from the horde and started swinging her fan into the sail. "You guys keep them busy. I'll knock the boat off course if I use any Fuuten Jutsu. Once we get in front of them, I'll be able to cover the rear." Naruto nodded and summoned some clones to meet their enemy's charge, while Sai pulled out a scroll bringing forth a school of ink sharks. The clones fell easily enough, but like Sakura said, they kept reforming, and unlike shadow clones, the chakra cost is minuscule. Even Naruto had to run out of chakra at some point. To make matters worse, after the initial gain, it appears that they weren't making any more progress, and Temari frowned. "They must be using a Suten Jutsu to speed up their boat. I don't think I can get us ahead of them because they can keep theirs going constantly, but they have to be near the boat to do it." Naruto looked on and was fearful to launch any jutsu and sink the boat. They had to protect it, not take out the competition. The blonde refused to stoop to their level, but the water between the boats was filled with the Oboro Bunshines, fog clones, and any clone that got too close was dispelled by a hidden attack. They couldn't pull away from the enemy boat and couldn't get close to stop it. Suddenly a devious grin made its way onto Naruto's face. "Temari, on my signal I want you to give the boat as much wind as it can handle, and Sai, I want you to take the rudder and shift it so we're turning hard to the right." Seeing they understood, Naruto summoned another horde of Cage Bunshine and sent them to the water as the Wagarashi boat put some distance between them, leaving the Haze clones in their wake. Instead of charging, Naruto's clones spaced out around the Haze clones and got down on one knee with their right hands in the water. Many were dispelled, but 3 Jinan, throwing kunai and shuriken, had no hope of dispelling enough clones to make a difference. The water around the clone horde started to spin lazily and the real Naruto yelled out, "Now!" Suddenly the lazy spin turned into a full-blown whirlpool as the Wasabi boat pulled hard to the right away from the dangerously spinning waters before correcting its course, while the Almazianon screamed in pain through their rebreathers. Sarutobi tapped the end of his pipe on his chin. "You never detained the Almazianon. Is it possible that they did it?" Naruto looked back at his team before shaking his head. "No, we already discussed that. Those 3 may have been able to do it, but they would leave evidence. There were nothing at the scene except for the body, no tracks or scents at all. Also, after the defeat of their Jounin sensei, I doubt that they would want to continue the mission." The Sandaime seemed to think it over before agreeing. "Yes, that would be unlikely, but at this point we cannot discount any theory. Please continue." "Right, well, we saw the Wagarashi runner make land and we got there 5 minutes after. We then continued the race as a group until Sai and Sakura went ahead to secure the ravine we would have to run through. There was no sign of trouble and I sent clones ahead of us to take out the traps they set. It wasn't until a mile before the bridge where we split up that we ran into trouble." Naruto looked around trying to find the landmarks his clones saw that would indicate it was time to split up. Finally he saw the gnarled tree and hopped over to Temari after sending clones to tell Sakura and Sai they were splitting up. He couldn't help but admire the Sunakunoichi's legs as they propelled her gracefully through the trees and her skirt kept riding up. Shaking away the unprofessional thoughts, Naruto landed next to her on the branch she was jumping at. "We're going to go ahead and scout out the bridge. I already let Sakura and Sai know." Temari gave him a nod and the two burst into motion and blurred through the treetops. As they got closer to the bridge, Naruto got an uneasy feeling in his stomach and gave a hand signal to Temari that they had some company. She signaled she understood, and as soon as they burst into the clearing in front of the rickety wooden bridge, an open umbrella appeared above them and began spinning rapidly and spitting out senbone. Temari deflected the rain of needles with a blast of wind from her fan, and Naruto turned rapidly while unsheathing his saber to parry the glowing yellow blade that looked like a lightning bolt. The man holding the sword had his Ame headband obscured by his medium-length green hair. He wore a black vest that had two wide white stripes going down the side that met up with white stripes on the outside of his pants legs, while the black stripe in the middle came down to the inside of his pants that were almost black. He had purple eyes that widened as he jumped back. That's impressive. Not many blades can parry an attack from the Raijin no Ken. The Ame Jounin burst into motion, slashing at the blonde, who managed to get an awkward block up. The green-haired man did a full spin to the left, slashing his sword horizontally at Naruto's torso, but the Jounin managed to deflect the strike at the last second, but it put him off balance. The Jounin took full advantage and thrust the glowing point of the chakra blade at the blonde's chest, but he allowed himself to tumble underneath the blade and rolled across the ground before facing the man once more. The Jounin wasn't a swordsman by any means. Naruto used his sharingan when he sparred Kakashi, and his sensei's moves were more graceful and fluid, whereas this man's motions were choppy and disjointed. However, he was a fully grown man and a Jounin. He was faster, stronger, and had a greater reach than Naruto, and the Jinchuriki wasn't good enough with the chakra saber to take advantage of the shinobi's flaws. Temari gave Naruto a pointed look, and the blonde jumped back as the Amenin charged again and dodged the slash as he brought his blade up parallel with his body, but the Jounin jumped back and dodged easily, but the blonde wasn't aiming for him. He used one of the abilities of his blade, and in its wake was a thick cloud of white ash that blocked the Jounin's view. Naruto took advantage of his blindness and shined away, and Temari sent their opponent tumbling over the edge of the cliff. The fight was far from over though, and he came charging back over the edge of the canyon and slashed the sword, sending an electric arc at the blonde duo. Temari dispelled it with a swing of her fan, and Naruto followed up with a kunai barrage. The green-haired man just laughed while raising his blade as it discharged electricity in long arcs, and the kunai's course diverted and they all stuck to the Raijin before dropping to the ground when the electricity faded. Temari sent another blast of wind at the laughing ninja, but he collapsed into a puddle of water before impaling Naruto from behind with his sword. The blonde gasped before smirking, and he disappeared in a cloud of smoke while Temari unleashed a blast of wind blades. The Jounin had no time to dodge and was sliced by the vicious air blades, though he reinforced his skin with chakra so no major arteries or veins were sliced. He started to rise, and before he could charge he heard a surprised gasp. "Aoi-sensei." The Sandaime was listening with his hands steepled on the desk until he raised one to halt the story. Yes, Aoi was Adate's Jounin sensei and was used by him much like Mizuki used you before running away, but we never placed enough value on him to attempt to bring him in. Perhaps Adate wasn't as full as we believed and was actually an agent of Amigakure and Chanokuni. Instead of Naruto, it was Sai who spoke up. "That would be impossible, Hokage-sama." Sarutobi cocked an eyebrow. "Please continue." "I was following Adate the whole time, and he didn't use chakra except to increase his speed. The only way he could have done it is if he switched out with a shadow clone before the race." The Hokage turned his attention back to Naruto. "Is there any point he could have switched that you remember?" The Chunin thought hard for several moments before answering, "No, and he could not have done it before the race because he was scratched by a kunai at the first ambush. Also, he was genuinely surprised to see his sensei, and not pleasantly surprised." The village leader turned towards the two kunoichi. "And what are your opinions on this matter?" Temari answered first, quite comfortable in addressing a Kage because of her lineage. "I don't think he did either, Hokage-sama. His chakra pool was nowhere near large enough to perform an effective Kage Bunshine, and other clone types can't use chakra." Sakura followed up. Also, Adate looked at Jiricho with genuine respect and fondness. He could fool civilians but not a shinobi. The Sandaime reclined in his chair. "Yes, but an important lesson you should all learn is underestimating someone is the greatest advantage you can give them. This boy was able to suppress his chakra well enough to throw off Kensuke's tracking and outrun one of your clones, but you don't give him any credit. For the record, I don't think it was Adate either. But that is only because Aviki confirmed that it wasn't his brother. Anyways, please continue." "Yeah, well, we were holding our own when Sai and Sakura showed up with Adate." Flashback. Aoi-sensei. Naruto turned to see Adate fall to his knees with a hopeless look in his eye and turned back to the Ame Jounin. "Sensei?" The Ame Jounin started laughing even harder. "That's right, I was Adate's Jounin sensei when we were both shinobi of Konoha. Of course, that was before I tricked the pathetic fool into stealing the legendary sword wielded by the Nidaime Hokage, the Raijin no Ken." Naruto looked between the two of them. He was confident that given enough time that Temari and him would have been able to win, but it could get risky, and with the Junon team defeated and the Jounin here, it didn't seem like there would be any more resistance. "Sai, take it and continue the race, we'll hold him off." The pale boy nodded and pulled the catatonic runner along, only for Aoi to turn and cut the rope bridge with a lightning crescent. Naruto made a squad of clones and had some of them attack the Jounin while the rest ran to the cliff edge and formed a human bridge across the canyon. Sai pulled out a scroll and summoned some ink lions that went into the foliage while Naruto created a clone bridge. "I'll leave some ink animals to give you some support, see you guys at the finish line." Naruto nodded and turned his attention to the Jounin. He dispelled all the clones and was fending off the combined attacks of Sakura and Temari. He ran towards the action while Sai dragged it over the bridge, ignoring the cries of pain from the clones whenever a foot landed on their heads. Unbeknownst to Naruto, a man was hidden in the foliage watching the fight. He was on a mission of his own when he stumbled across the battle, and an opportunity to retrieve 2 legendary swords was too good to pass up. Knowing that he wouldn't be able to explain his presence in an ally of Konoha, the man silently removed his headband and put a slash in it with his kunai before retying it and turning his attention back to the battle. The 3 kids were good. The boy held the man's deadly sword at bay, with his occasionally retreating to allow his teammates to get a shot in from afar. The man couldn't go on the offensive and he would eventually slip up. The kids could have gone far, it was too bad they would have to die today. One of the Suna girl's few Uden attacks almost pushed the man to the edge of the chasm, and if he fell in it would have made the Raijin lost to the ages. Knowing it was now or never, the man's arm was encased in lightning chakra and he burst into motion. Naruto felt a flare of chakra from behind him, and as he turned, a dark blur shot past him, and by the time he turned back around, Aoi's body hit the ground in 2 pieces. A black man wearing the standard Kumo Jounin uniform stood behind the fallen body with his left arm extended and a sword of lightning crackling around it. He bent down to pick up the handle as he let the lightning dissipate and channeled his chakra into the blade, causing it to reform before turning around and staring at the 3 shinobi from behind his sunglasses while speaking in a cold voice, "Give me the chakra saber and I'll let you leave peacefully." Naruto growled and held his hand up, telling his team to wait for now. "Why would I do that? We outnumber you 3-1, and in case you didn't notice, we were handling that other guy." The bald shinobi started laughing. That man didn't deserve the Jounin vest he was wearing, and he swung the sword around like an academy student. "I was a Jounin of Kumagakura before leaving, and though I am not an expert in Kenjutsu, I'm leagues ahead of either of you. One last chance, surrender the sword or die." Naruto decided not to waste the opportunity given to them and disappeared in a blur, intent on using his saber to slice the man in half lengthwise. The Jounin wasn't phased though, and casually shifted the Raijin until it was perpendicular to his body and used it to block the Chunin strike. "I guess I have my answer. If it's any comfort, I respect your bravery and will make your deaths quick as possible." Temari unfolded her fan until all 3 moons were showing and swung it at Naruto and the Kumo-nin, yelling, "Like it'll be that easy." Naruto pushed with his sword against the Raijin and lifted himself higher in the air, allowing the wind to push him away, and Sakura made several hand signs, "Ninpa, Dokagiri." She exhaled a noxious cloud of purple smoke, which was caught in the wind and blew over the missing nin. Naruto used a sunshine to escape the poison gas and took his place by the 2 girls, but when the smoke cleared, only a log was there. Naruto pushed the 2 kunoichi to the floor and just managed to deflect the strike from the Raijin with his blade, but the Jounin was undeterred and delivered a brutal kick to Naruto's ribs, but as he flew away he managed to let loose a brace of shuriken, forcing the man to retreat and giving Sakura and Temari a chance to recover. The Jounin landed and didn't push the attacks, just stood confidently facing his 3 opponents. Naruto reached down to where he was kicked and felt the cracks repairing themselves and took a deep breath. This opponent was on a whole nother level and he couldn't afford to hold back. He reached up to his headband and one of the black man's eyebrows raised behind his glasses when Naruto began raising the cloth, but once the blonde revealed his sharingan, a wicked grin was flashed his way. "This is too perfect. Not only do I get 2 legendary blades, but I also get a sharingan eye. Anything else I should know about before I rip that eye from your socket?" He received no answer except for the 3 to charge him once more. He dodged a Guka launched from the blonde boy before blocking the follow-up jab, but after he blocked the punch, Naruto grabbed his forearm and used it to spin himself around the Jounin's right side and deliver a spin kick to the side of his face. The Kumo-nin moved with the blow and let himself fall to the ground before rolling to put some distance between him and the charging teens. He heard something whistling as it flew through the air while he was rolling and used his chakra to propel him faster, barely dodging the senbon the pink-haired girl launched at him, leaving a trail of steel behind him. When he regained his footing, he had to channel chakra into his feet so he wouldn't get pushed over the edge of the cliff by the wind blast, but he figured it was the lesser of 2 evils when a handful of kunai were launched at him with burning explosive tags trailing behind them. Jay cut the chakra flow to his feet and pushed the Raijin into the ground, allowing it to slow his progress enough for him to safely grab the side of the cliff and anchor himself using chakra, but as soon as he went over, the distinctive thud of kunai piercing the earth was followed by the sizzling sound an explosive tag makes before detonating. Shit. Jay started running along the side of the cliff as the tags detonated, destroying the cliff wall where he was just hanging. After moving 100 meters away from the blast, the Jounin launched himself in the air and made several one-handed seals, but instead of the jutsu launching itself from his hand, the Raijin blade crackled blue with electricity, and when he announced the name it flew from the sword. Raiten, Raikyu. A ball of lightning larger than anything Jay ever created before was launched from the sword towards the three teens. Jay never expected the attack to hit, though it would have been nice. Instead he used it to split the three up, and it worked to perfection. These kids were better than expected, and he couldn't let them regroup once more. The Jounin focused on the pink one first. He already saw the medic pack attached to her leg, so she would have to be taken out first so she couldn't heal the other two and keep them in the fight. The girl saw his intent and shakily held a handful of senbon in her right hand while throwing several pellets with her left. To her surprise, the black shinobi burst through the poison smoke, so she launched her senbon, but they went through the man's body, and Sakura could only mutter a surprised bunshine before the ground under her began to shake and a pillar of electricity rose from the ground, eliciting a scream of agony from the pinkette. The Jounin then raised the sword and focused on creating a Raikyu and aimed it at the medic, but before he could launch it he had to turn and block a slash from the boy's chakra saber, leaving him open for the other Kunoichi to attack with her fan from behind. The Jounin used his superior strength to push the boy away and turned to meet the girl and cut off her arms, holding the heavy iron fan at the elbows. She only smirked and turned into her teammate before disappearing in a puff of smoke, and her fan was engulfed with another cloud of smoke, and the real girl emerged, smashing the Jounin in the side with her real fan. The man was able to roll with a hit but was blown away by the blonde Chunin using a Daitapa. He rose to his feet and saw more clones of the boy carrying the unconscious girl away from the battle. Taking note of the direction they were traveling, Jay formed more one-handed signs as the two conscious shinobi charged him, and the Raijin began crackling once more before he called out, "Raiten, Jaibashi." Like before, the jutsu was stronger than his usual Jaibashi despite using one-handed seals, and a web of lightning surrounded him before branching off, catching both blondes in its deadly grasp. After 10 seconds he dropped the jutsu and the two dropped to the ground while their bodies were smoking. Jay smirked and approached the Chunin. "Be thankful that I need you alive to remove the eye. It saved the life of your little girlfriend. Now I need to be careful when I take out the sharingan, don't want it to get damaged before I implant it." To Jay's surprise, the boy began pushing himself to his feet, causing him to stop his approach, but when he stood up the boy had to brace himself against the tree. The black man continued his approach. "You've got guts, kid, I'll give you that. You need more than guts though to thrive in the world of shinobi." The missing nin was within 15 feet of Naruto, and the Kyuubi's chakra wasn't healing him fast enough, and according to the fox, using too much his chakra when his body was in this state would have bad consequences, like his organs failing. Knowing that his luck was about to expire along with him, Naruto was about to let himself fall to the ground when a roar broke the silence and two ink lions burst out from the foliage, and they both grabbed one of the Jounin's arms, forcing him to stop. Naruto saw his chance and dug deep, trying to summon and mold his chakra into a spiraling sphere. The blonde could see the man's eyebrows raise and watched as he struggled against the iron grip of the lions. Naruto couldn't summon any more chakra and looked down to see the Rasengan spinning, but threads of chakra were bleeding off into the air. Not wasting any more time, he rushed at the man, intent on finishing the fight now while he could. The blonde ran at the restrained Jounin, but as he lined the Rasengan up with the man's chest, the Raijin blade extended, piercing one of the lions, and he used it to dispel the other one, but he couldn't dodge the jutsu. The ball of chakra missed his chest, but hit his left arm at the elbow, separating it in a shower of blood. The pain caused the Raijin blade to dispel, and the man turned before running across the bridge. But before Naruto could pursue, he fell forward to the ground as his vision began to blur, but before it faded into black, a pink blob bent down in front of him and put something in his mouth and made him chew. Suddenly the blonde felt a surge of energy and rose to his feet to see Sakura being supported by one of his clones as she fed Tamari a soldier pill. Once sure that everything was okay, Naruto led the girls in pursuit of the missing nin. They didn't get very far though until they came upon his body lying in a pool of his own blood, but the sword was nowhere nearby. The Sandaime Hokage raised his hand, cutting the blonde off. "That's more than enough, Naruto. I know what happens next. You summoned as many clones as you could and stayed to search while sending the two girls ahead to inform everyone the danger passed. However, you couldn't find the blade or signs of anyone else in the area." Naruto just nodded, unable to meet his leader's eyes. "Yes, Hokage-sama. There was no sign that anyone else was in the area and no sign of foul play. Even Kensuke couldn't find anything." The leader nodded once while stroking his beard. "That's fine, Naruto, I don't blame you for this. You used everything at your disposal and didn't find anything, and I know that the Raijin is a legendary blade, but I think getting up and walking away is beyond the abilities of the sword." Team Naruto is dismissed. The Hokage watched them walk away before flipping through the most recent copy of Kumo's bingo book that they were able to recover. It was almost 3 months old, but Kumagakure has one of the lowest defection rates, mostly because the defectors are all found and killed before they can get out of the country, so only the best of the best are able to escape and become missing nin. But those shinobi are also given many privileges, so many of them don't want to leave, and like he suspected, nobody matching the description of the man was in the book. Knowing that he was pursuing a dead end, the aged Hokage replaced the book inside before lighting a pipe. The only explanation that was feasible to him was the man wasn't a missing nin but an actual Kumo Jounin on a team. Once he failed, they were forced to kill him and take the sword before retreating. However, the old man couldn't shake the feeling that he was missing something, that Kumo didn't have the sword. Naruto dismissed the team after they left the Hokage Tower, and now Sai made his way back to his apartment confident that he completed the mission with no one aware that he did. The pale boy sent an ink clone with it. He used the substitution with the ink clone he summoned and then a henge to appear as the third lion that never appeared in battle. The boy sat in the trees and waited for his opportunity. Luckily, nobody except Danzo knew that he needed to be within a certain distance of his creations and direct them personally unless he gave them very detailed instructions like he gave to the ink clone. As the Jounin approached Naruto, Sai knew he could wait no longer. Luckily, the Jounin was too caught up in his apparent victory to register the ambush, and Naruto had enough left in the tank to make the Rasengan. To make things even better, he didn't need to command the ink beasts to let the man go because he was able to dispel them and he wasn't fatally injured. As the man made his escape, Sai pulled out 2 small scrolls. One had 5 birds the size of a small owl, and the other one was filled with decorative insects. He touched his fingers on a bird and small fly and they rose from the scrolls before leaving to carry out his instructions. The bird flew above the forest while the fly took off after the retreating Kumo nin. Eventually the bug caught up and landed on his bleeding stump before forcing its way into the bloodstream, allowing the poison lay sting to take effect. After another 5 minutes, the man collapsed and the owl flew into the forest before picking up the handle of the sword in its talons and delivering it to its creator before flying a mile downstream and dissolving in the river, allowing the water to remove all traces of its existence.
That's it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and follow me on my other social media accounts. Anime God here, and I'm signing off.